What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. Happy Monday. As always, I'm Ari here with Korea. Korea, how was your weekend?
It was fast, but it was good. Obviously, draft happened. We talked about that, and now it's kind of crazy. Excuse me. We're already getting toward free agency. Obviously, free agency opens on Thursday, so it's kind of crazy. Quick turnaround for the NBA, but I can't complain. Ari, can't complain whatsoever.
Yeah, it was definitely an eventful weekend in the sports world, and we will start with what went down yesterday, the brawl between the Angels and the Mariners. It all started, it would be Saturday night in the ninth inning. Mariners at 5-3 in the bottom of the ninth, runner on first, 2 outs, and Eric Swanson throws past Trout's head. After the game, Trout made some comments about he didn't like that, blah, blah, blah. Even though if you were watching the game, you'd see that Swanson's control was all over the place the entire inning. And it's like, what's the logic in putting the winning run, bringing the winning run to the plate? Like, why would you do that on purpose? So and a week before, Lorenzen hit Justin Upton in the head. So there's really no reason for Mike Trout to think that that was on purpose if you given the circumstances of the situation, but that's besides the point. And then you fast forward to Sunday afternoon. It's all Saturday night into Sunday morning early. It's supposed to be Jose Suarez starting for the Angels. And I don't know how last second it was, but it was pretty last second. Phil Nevin, I believe is his name, the Angels interim manager, went to Andrew Wantz as the opener, a bullpen guy that clearly they didn't, care too much about to get ejected. And in the first inning, he throws behind Julio Rodriguez's head, and nothing really happens after that. I think there might have been warnings, but I'm not completely sure. And then you go to the second inning, and Jesse Winker gets hit. He starts talking to Angels dugout, and then it all went down from there. So basically, the Mariners' top three hitters in the lineup got ejected, and the Angels' players who got ejected meant nothing really to the game outside of Raisel Iglesias, their closer. So the Mariners are basically playing. They already had the series winning the first two games. So Korea, I'll leave it to you from there.
I'm gonna get a lot of smoke for this, and I want it. Angel fans suck. Angels suck. I don't care. They can come to my DMs. Let's have a conversation about it. Angels are soft. Look, when we talk about what happened yesterday afternoon, Angels are so soft. It's embarrassing. It's a disgrace to the game, and it's foolish, if anything. You have Anthony Rendon, who's already out for a considerable amount of time throwing punches like he's Mike Tyson in the fucking ring. Like, what is he doing? What is he doing? Like, you're already injured. Why are you throwing punches at Jesse Winker? And I like Jesse Winker standing up for Julio Rodriguez because the whole time you mentioned that conversation with Phil Nevin, he's literally saying he's a kid. He's a kid. Julio is not even 20 years old. And he's getting thrown at literally right by his head. Come on now. Really? Julio Rodriguez, a 19-year-old kid? You're going to throw at a 19-year-old kid because we can't control our pitcher who's throwing out of all-time great Mike Trout? Really, Angels? Really? I think that's just a weak move by the Angels. I think the Angels are a horrible franchise. This is going to be an Angels rant right now. F the Angels. They're sad. They're pathetic. They're wasting Mike Trout's career. They're going to waste Shohei Ohtani's career because they're not going to make a playoff anytime soon. And then don't get me started with what Joe Adell said on Twitter yesterday, calling us the softest team in baseball.
I didn't see that.
Oh yeah, look at that. Joe Adell on Twitter yesterday said the Mariners are the softest team in baseball, and I'm like, you're a clown. I'm like, just shut up, you're a clown. So all the Angels are clowns at this point. Look, and you mentioned it. It's unfortunate because you have our three best hitters. You had Winker, gone. Crawford kicked out. Rodriguez obviously kicked out.
Julio, like what? What did Julio even do? Like from what I saw, he was like just from the outside, like he wasn't even like in the middle of everything. So I don't even like. And I think the reporters or whoever or service someone asked the umpires after the game why Julio was ejected, and they didn't even have a reason. So like,
Yeah, it's an embarrassing display from the Angels and the umpires. And then one thing I did like to see is Scott Service coming out of that pile beat up because he's defending this team. That's a good sign for a Mariners organization right there. For someone, and plus, I can personally say this: I haven't seen a Mariners brawl like this in a long time, and I honestly think this brawl was kind of stemming from two teams who have been struggling all year, and now they're at an impasse point, and obviously it was a collision course. And might I add you that the Mariners have been one of the most thrown at teams in the American League West this year, which I find absolutely mind-boggling and ridiculous in the import. Why are people throwing at the Mariners? I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. It's not like we're the Houston Asterisks right here. We're not using trash cans and different kinds of cameras to cheat. Like we're the Mariners. We haven't made a playoff series in 2000 since 2001. Like we're 21 years. Might be 21 years this year. So I don't know why the AOS is throwing at us. And then on top of that, you just look at how the Angels are right now, right? They've been losing a bunch of games. They just lost a series to the Mariners. Yes, they're right now in third place, but still, like the Mariners have to play Baltimore in a 3-game series before Oakland comes into town. Also, I'll be at that game on Saturday, so I'm hyped to see that. But this is the opportunity for the Mariners. I talked about this last week, and I said if the Mariners can come out of this winning every single series, we have a chance. They sweep Oakland. We almost get the sweep in Anaheim. Now we come back home, and home is where we usually do a lot better. So I really hope this Mariners team can really find that spark after yesterday's debacle and use that as motivation to save their season. Now, obviously, the injuries and the suspensions are going to pile up, obviously, with Ty France already being injured. We'll get into that in a little bit about his replacement. But you see the suspensions are probably going to be coming any day now, or pretty much any minute, which is also a major concern because obviously Jesse Winker is kind of the leader or not the perpetrator, but the main center of attraction in terms of all of this. Also, shout out to that fan who bought him a pizza. That was amazing. Oh my God. That fan, who bought him the pizza, has to be one of the best people on earth.
And then the delivery driver got his like Venmo and Cash App out, and so I think I saw he had like 300 plus people donate to him for what he did. So just that whole story was really cool.
Yeah, definitely a really cool story. Obviously, just since that ejection was early in that second inning, Jesse Winker and the rest of the Mariners crew had to watch for 7 innings their team lose a 2-1 ball game. But in the process, a dedicated fan of Jesse Winker's ordered him a pizza to be sent to the Angels away dugout, obviously, since where the Mariners were, and they send it to Jesse Winker. And some way, somehow, by the graces of God, it happened. The Jesse Winker got his pizza. The fan became one of the most amazing stories yesterday. So shout out to that fan. But back to baseball. The suspensions that are about to come are going to be bad. I'm not going to lie to you. But at the same time, I would rather have a suspension than another injury because we can see the injuries piling up. I mean, Ty France just got injured in the Oakland series, and now he's going to be out for a little while. And now we're still waiting on Kyle Lewis to see when he's coming back. Now, Mitch Haniger is still going to be out for a very considerable amount of time. And so these injuries just keep piling up. So the Mariners right now, they need to focus on what they can bring to the table in terms of like all these, now I don't want to say subs, but the plan B roster. We need to see what they can really bring to the table in these next couple of weeks, considering we're heading into the All-Star break in just a couple of weeks. And, right now we're about 6 games under 500, but I saw the schedule. The Mariners have to play Baltimore, Oakland, the Nationals, who are horrible, and then Texas. And then in between that, they got to play San Diego and Toronto, which is going to be very, very hard. 2 games on the road for San Diego and then a 4-game home stretch versus Toronto. So you got to play those teams. I feel like if we are within 5 games, plus or minus under over 500, I feel like this is a perfect opportunity for us to really, really turn the notch for that second half like we did last season. So hopefully, I'm praying that this fight, this brawl, literally it was a brawl because punches were being thrown. This wasn't like this little, MLB, disagreement of words. This was an actual fight. So I hope this fight actually brings that spark back into the locker room because it definitely brought some spark to Scott Service, who has, excuse me, for some reason, a lot of people have been mentioning his name kind of on the chopping block after the Mariners' rough stretch throughout May and a little part of June. And to see him dedicated to this team, shirts, not scram, but, just putting his, not his life, but, risking his health for this ball club is a nice thing to see. So hopefully the Mariners can use that momentum in these upcoming series to, kind of get back to where not the expectations, but where the hope was that the Mariners would be, somewhere over 500 heading into the All-Star break, potentially in contention for a playoff spot.
Yeah, I agree. It seemed like kind of 2 teams that, had high expectations coming into the year who have struggled so far. So I'm sure there is a lot of vent up, kind of anger inside everyone that was part of what led to all that, paired with, the 2 teams playing each other 8 times in like a week and a half span. So putting aside the fight, they still won 5 of their last 6. They're 6 under 500, so they're, climbing their way up. And the addition they made this morning, acquiring Carlos Santana, shows that they're going to be buyers, at least to some extent, at the trade deadline, which is late July, I believe, sometime next month. So, with Ty France sidelined for at least for a little bit, we'll have Santana, fill in that first base. And then once France is back, he'll be an upgrade at DH. Santana really struggled early in the year, but in the month of June, he's hitting 357, OPS over 1,000. He's a veteran. He's a lefty, which will fit in nice with the lineup full of righties. So, they traded Wyatt Mills, William Fleming. So I think it's a low risk trade, and it shows that, they're going to be looking to make moves to win now, come the trade deadline and come close to the trade deadline next month. So like you said, yeah, these next 2 series are going to be big against the Orioles and Oakland to get back at least to hopefully the 500, or at least, within a couple games of 500. And yeah, I agree that by the All-Star break, they really need to be no less than 5 games under 500 to really be in a position to make a run after the All-Star break. So did you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about, I said we found a temporary replacement for Ty France, and obviously that was Carlos Santana. You mentioned the low risk, low reward trade, and I definitely kind of see that as that. I literally just see him as the Ty France replacement in the lineup until he's healthy. Hopefully, Ty France will still be selected for the All-Star game because he deserves it. And no, this injury should not, this injury should not set him back. I mean, you want to talk about injuries in All-Star games. Fernando Tatis, who hasn't started a damn game, is 5th in voting for shortstops in the NL. So you can forget about injuries. But back to my point right there. This was definitely the Ty France replacement. And it's kind of funny that we already traded for Carlos Santana back, I think it was 4 years ago during the JP trade. So it's kind of, a nice happy reunion for Carlos Santana coming back to Seattle. But yeah, this is definitely just a replacement filler for Ty France. And you mentioned these are kind of the people that we're kind of have to depend on in this whatever game stretch to the All-Star break that we have, where we're playing, not the greatest competition, but, we still have some hard matchups like San Diego in right after the Oakland series for the 4th of July, and then having Toronto come in for a 4-game series. And Toronto, their bats are definitely something to be scared of. So I think this is just a safety move, and I like how aggressive the Mariners are in this, already fixing it for the now instead of waiting, a couple weeks down to adjust the problem. I think that's the difference with this Mariners team now versus the Mariners back in 2018. The Mariners back in 2018, we have an injury like this. Oh, we'll just let the guy come up and we'll see how he does. He'll probably hit like 200 for us. We don't care. Versus now, it's okay. We need to find a Ty France replacement right now. Ty France is hitting his best baseball. We need someone who can fill that role right now and actually be a consistent hitter. And that's what they got into Carlos Santana. Not the most consistent hitter, but someone. No disrespect to Kevin Padlo, because I know he's trying, but we need someone better than Kevin Padlo. Like, we can't depend on Kevin Padlo to be our first baseman for the whole time until Ty France is fully healthy. So. Yes, I definitely think that this trade was, necessary. I like how fast it was. Definitely an immediate change for the Mariners. And we bring in someone who's familiar with the organization. It's not someone brand new. So, it's not going to be, a challenge to, get them accustomed to how Mariners baseball is. So, this is definitely. And then you mentioned the 2 pitchers we traded away. It's very low risk, low in the system. So, this is definitely just a trade that we needed to have in order for pretty much for us to not save our. I don't want to say Carlos Santana is saving our season, but in terms of what is going on right now with Ty France and all these pending suspensions, we needed someone who could immediately come into our lineup and fix a problem that is definitely out bright, and kind of shine that kind of move that problem away, and focus on now moving on, playing Baltimore tonight in our first of 3-game series. And Baltimore is actually not even that bad this year. They're about the same way as us. We're about 5 games under 500. Baltimore Orioles are. Yeah. So we can't even discredit the Baltimore Orioles now, the way they're playing baseball. So we have to focus there, and then obviously moving on throughout the rest of the month, heading into the All-Star break as well. This is definitely just an insurance trade, and I definitely like how Scott Service and Jerry DiPoto and that whole Mariners organization made sure that the insurance policy was present now instead of a week later.
No, yeah, Baltimore's been playing really well, especially offensively. I think their bullpen's been pretty good, but still, the Mariners are going to be a contender. This is a home series that they have to take either way, so we'll see if Kirby can get them off to a good start tonight in the opener of 3 games. So that would be it for the MLB talk. As we get into July with the All-Star break and all that, we'll probably have more content. We'll talk about like our All-Star predictions and who we think we should make it and all that. But now we'll head into some NBA talk with the latest rumors of DeJounte Murray potentially going to the Hawks. I saw it first on Twitter. This guy named Zach Klein, he's verified. I don't know much about how reputable he is as a source, but he said according to multiple of his sources, there's talk of DeJounte Murray being traded to the Hawks, and apparently it would not include John Collins, who's been in the middle of trade talks for a while. It would be Gallinari and like a few first-round picks. Apparently, the Spurs are looking to the future in the 2023 draft, which doesn't make much sense to me considering Murray's only, I think, 25. So, like, I don't see why you wouldn't want to build around him. And then with the Hawks, it's kind of a weird backcourt with Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, 2 kind of ball-dominant guards. So, Curry, what's your thoughts on that trading? I guess how that would fit for both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of been a fan of, you mentioned it, kind of building around Murray in San Antonio. And I'm still kind of confused as to why they're trying to ship him off, considering, he's only 25. He is one of the best point guards that is under 25 right now. He's one of the best point guards pretty much in the West right now. He's definitely a top 10. But what I'm confused about is definitely why he's going to Atlanta. I've heard his name mentioned potentially being traded to the Celtics. I know the Celtics definitely want DeJounte Murray this offseason, and I think he'd be a better fit up there. Trying to have that true dominant point guard that the Celtics kind of need right now to bring up the ball and, kind of be a leader offensively. And then you mention it when he goes to Atlanta, you have Trae Young, who's already got point guard dominant, role, who kind of takes the ball into his own hands. And I feel like him and DeJounte Murray is kind of, a collision course. You have two ball dominant guys, who like to take it to the lane or, make the play for themselves. Um, and we've seen DeJounte Murray, take it upon himself to kind of lead the Spurs team sometimes into some big, some clutch moments. So I don't understand why the Spurs are definitely trying to rebuild already, considering they could, instead of rebuild, just build around DeJounte Murray and, build a championship team back again after the days of Tim Duncan and Ginobili and Tony Parker for Greg Popovich before he eventually retires. So I think he's definitely going to retire. I think this may be his last year in the NBA. But moving on, DeJounte Murray, he's definitely that guy. We've seen him ball out before out of Washington. Also, shout out Washington product. So I don't understand why they're already shopping him. And plus, especially to the Hawks, I've seen his name mentioned a lot with Atlanta. I even saw Bleacher Report talk about it, and DeJounte Murray even retweeted it himself. He was like, "Uh-oh," with like an emoji. So definitely could be a hint that something that actually could be happening, that DeJounte Murray to Atlanta could be happening sometime in the near future. But on a logistical level, I don't think it will help Atlanta as much as it will, because they don't really need someone who can run the floor, because they already have Trae Young who can run the floor. They just need someone else who can complement his shooting style and, not have to depend on Trae Young to drop 55 points in a win. It's just a little confusing, considering that the Hawks are definitely a team that is just one star away, but they're addressing the wrong problem right now, trying to trade for a point guard who is, very dominant, kind of takes it upon himself, likes to drive to the lane, and, very point guard style like. And you already have that in Trae Young, who can also hit the three. So all you really need is a wing star who can hit threes and, be that kind of two-way player that you need. So I don't really understand what the Hawks are doing, but at the same time, if they do trade for DeJounte Murray, obviously it's an all-star, so definitely a big trade for that organization, and the Spurs would, kind of have that chance to have that full rebuild underway. But with the pieces the Spurs have, all you really need is just a couple stars, and you're back. They made the play-in last year, which is, they lost, but still they made the play-in, obviously, over the Lakers, who had all the stars, obviously, until they got injured. So, but yeah, I don't really understand this from a Spurs perspective, and an Atlanta perspective, but I've seen his name mentioned with Atlanta a lot recently, and Boston. But I think Boston would be the better fit for DeJounte Murray if he wanted to go anywhere right now, just because they really need that position for him, that kind of, point guard who can, take it upon himself, because they already have Jason Tatum who can who can ball out. They have Jaylen Brown, who has ascended into a star. And then you have Al Horford, if they decide to re-sign him, who has just emerged as this, this player who can, has size and, can defend well, a very great two-way player. So I'm going on and on and on. But DeJounte Murray to the Hawks, not the best fit, not the best idea. And for the Spurs, just not a great investment when you really think about it for the future, because you already have your future. You just need to build around that.
Yeah, like you said, I agree that I think Atlanta needs more like shooting depth and not another like ball dominant guard. But you assume if they're going to make a trade that they're going to talk to Trae Young before they make a move like that. So maybe they'll talk to both Trae Young and Murray, and maybe they'll come to an agreement on one of them. Obviously they could just like take turns taking the ball up the court, and so as long as the two are on the same page, I feel like it could work out. But yeah, like you said, I feel like they have other needs to fill. But if all it takes is Gallinari and a few first round picks, then maybe it's worth it if the two are on the same page. So obviously all these are rumors right now. We'll see if anything comes to fruition. We have the Kyrie Irving saga that keeps. Hasn't really gone anywhere. It's still just him looking for sign trade offers. I think I heard this morning that the Lakers right now are the only team that have shown interest in him. But yeah, as we get into free agency, like you said on Thursday, we'll dive more into that as we get more information. Was there anything else NBA related you want to talk about?
Yeah, there is one more thing. Bradley Beal. Oh, this guy. This man's delusional. I'm sorry, but this man's absolutely delusional. So, for those who don't know, Bradley Beal, it's been reported that he is obviously going to seeming like he's going to opt back in to the Wizards, signing a big contract, 5 year. I think it was reported 240 million rumors after opting out of his player option. It kind of comes as a surprise. A lot of people were expecting Bradley Beal to potentially, actually leave Washington because, he never has been on a winning team and never really has been, past the second or third round of the playoffs. And now it's very confusing for me and a lot of people to see him going back to this team, that's already trying to rebuild. And we already talked about this on Friday after the draft. They got their replacement. They got Johnny Davis. We figured that would be the Bradley Beal replacement, but now it's seeming that Bradley Beal is just gonna come back and sign a big supermax contract with this team. And I kind of find it very surprising at all the timing of this, considering Bradley Beal. It seemed like he was just gonna go leave, that he was gonna go to a contender, that he was gonna get his rings, but I guess he really just wanted his bag. So I guess shout out to him. He got his bag, but at what cost? I mean, you're not going to win a championship anytime soon with that roster, and it's just a rebuilding phase for this Washington Wizards team. But it feels like this Wizards team is, building around Bradley Beal, and we'll see how they do this time, considering they did it once and it did not work with Russell Westbrook. So it's round two again, drafting Johnny Davis. They still have their young pieces around them. Ari, I know this was definitely a shock to you, considering we were already talking about how Bradley Beal would be fitting on better teams, and now it's looking like he's just gonna opt back into playing in Washington for another 5 years. Ari, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty clear that he, values money and generational wealth, whatever you want to call it, over winning. Which to each their own. And I am a little bit surprised. It seemed like I don't know. It just seemed like he wasn't, from the outside looking in, he wasn't very happy in that situation. That's what it seemed like to me, at least. But maybe he talked to the management or whatever, and they fixed whatever they had going on. If there wasn't anything, obviously maybe there wasn't anything going on. But yeah, it seemed like he wanted out of Washington, and it seemed like him opting out of the player option was the first step to him heading elsewhere. Um, but nothing's going to be official until the 30th, I believe, is the start. So obviously, maybe a team swoops in and offers him a little bit less, but some other incentive or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, we'll see what happens with all of that. So now we'll go into the NFL. The latest report with Debo, it seemed like stuff had quieted down. He reported to minicamp. It seemed like everything was done, and then the report comes out a couple of days ago that he still hasn't rescinded his trade request. I still think they're gonna get a deal done at this point. Like I feel like if he was holding out, then there would be something to this, but it's because he reported minicamp, which he didn't have to. Obviously, maybe he did because he didn't want to get all the fines and whatnot. But I mean, I feel like he has enough money to where he could take the fines if he really wanted to be traded. But this whole thing came out first because he didn't like the way he was utilized last year as a rusher, as a hybrid running back for wide receiver. When in reality, you would think that if you didn't want that role, he could have said something. But yeah, I mean, just based off how things have quieted down and as of late, and the fact that he's at mini camp, I don't think a trade's going to happen. What do you think, Korea?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when these trade rumors were pretty much running the media. That was like back in early March, and around the beginning of free agency. Excuse me, right as the free agency period opened. But now everything kind of died down after that, and now it's just waiting to see whether or not the Niners can really work something out with Deebo Samuel. I mean, yes, it's worth to note that he has not rescinded his trade request, but at the same time, you mentioned he's showing up for training camp. He after all this time, because at first he wasn't showing up to OTAs, and then I was like, okay, well maybe he is really trying to get traded, but then that was like back in May, and then we're already almost in July, and no trade has happened, no movement has happened on that side. The news was kind of dead about the whole Deebo Samuel situation, so it's looking like they're just trying to get him back, but they're still looking around, and they still have to deal with the whole Jimmy Garoppolo situation. That's a whole different situation, trying to see what they're trying to do with him. And that's pretty much been dead as well. So it looks like the Niners are just going to be sticking with this team that they brought to the NFC Championship last year, depending on what they actually do with Deebo Samuel and Jimmy Garoppolo. It'll definitely be interesting to see actually how they really address Deebo Samuel, because you mentioned that he wants to get his back. He wants to get paid. He wants to be a top wide receiver in this league that has, the most money. But the thing with the Niners that we've talked about in the past is that he has not played a full season yet, obviously with injuries and all of that to factor in. We have not really seen Deebo Samuel play a full season, so that actually is kind of the reason why Deebo is kind of in these contract negotiation talks right now, because the Niners don't want to pay him that much, with him not playing a full season. And then obviously Deebo thinks he does want that money because he was like the running back, wide receiver, kind of the utility man on offense, who not only racked up fantasy points, but just, was their main offensive weapon in terms of how they played football last year. So it is interesting to note that Samuel has not rescinded it. But at the same time, it looks like they're, I guess, working toward a contract or working in that direction, because nothing has happened. If things would have boiled over, Deebo Samuel would have been shipped off somewhere by this point. So it's looking like they're going to try and bring him back, since training camp is right up, we're already here, and then you have the preseason, which is a little over a month away, and that'll be a quick turnaround if he gets traded. So, but I mean, it's early still, so we'll see. But for now, I think Deebo Samuel is kind of working with this San Francisco 49ers organization to try and lock him back in. I don't know how long-term it will be, because I know the Niners are definitely going to, push back on that. But I think Deebo will be hopefully getting his back, because I know he deserves it as well. So, yeah, this is definitely something to note of. But at the same time, it's been looking like Deebo Samuel is going to be sticking with this team after all this trade talk negotiations after the season ended. So we'll see what happens, but it's looking like Deebo Samuel will be staying, considering they haven't even addressed the bigger elephant in the room, is who is starting week 1, Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Situation to monitor as we get into training camp, but not much to know as of right now. Just the one final topic I wanted to touch on that I didn't mention to you before, but I just remember that it came up yesterday. Another, like with the DeJounte Murray, is like a verified source on Twitter, but again, I don't know how reputable he is, because I don't know much about him. But the rumors, and it came up like a month and a half ago of Mayfield going to the Seahawks, and then everything quieted down, and now yesterday on Sunday they came back up on Twitter. For me personally, like, I think Mayfield makes the Seahawks better in the short term, but to me, he puts them in what I call the no man's land, which is like you're not a contender for a Super Bowl, but you're not a contender for a top 5 pick, so you're just kind of stuck in the middle, which to me is like the worst place to be, where you're like a 500 team basically, where you're like maybe you sneak into that to that final wild card spot, but you're not a contender for the Super Bowl, and you're still better than a top 5 pick. So then you don't get a top quarterback in 2023 class if like Locke or Geno Smith were to struggle, let's just say. So for me personally, I'd rather stick with Drew Lock, and then if he works out, great. If he doesn't work out, then they get a top pick in the next year's draft. Korea, do you have the same take, different take? What's your thoughts?
No, I absolutely hate these rumors. I absolutely despise them. And I'm not even saying that because of Baker Mayfield, The quarterback, I'm saying this because of the Seahawks' full dedication to the rebuild. If the Seahawks are really dedicated to this rebuild, as you mentioned, why would they trade for Baker and put themselves in this position of no man's land where, they could end up, 8 and they could end up, 9-8 and make the playoffs. They can end up 7-10 and just miss the playoffs. And I don't want that. I don't want that uncertainty. I want the Seahawks to either be dedicated to the full rebuild or actually be fully dedicated to actually still being a contender. But that's out the damn window. So, okay, you're going to be dedicated to the rebuild. Why are you looking to Baker Mayfield? Yes, there would be a fun story, Baker Mayfield after the whole Deshaun Watson trade. And then now it's looking like Deshaun Watson not even going to be playing. And there's been a report that if Deshaun Watson is suspended for the full season, which is probably what's going to be happening, they're not even going to be going to Baker Mayfield. They're going to be going to Jacoby Brissett as the starting quarterback for week 1, just already knowing that Baker is already disgruntled with his organization and does not want to play for them after how they did him super dirty right now. But moving on, Baker Mayfield, look, I have no problem with him, right? Actually, Ari, I have a problem with Baker Mayfield. But with the idea of him coming to Seattle, I think it just blows this rebuild idea out the window, because if the Seahawks were trying to properly rebuild, they would stick with either Drew Lock, who they got in the trade for Russell Wilson this year, or Geno Smith, who I've heard is potentially rumoring to be the week 1 starter. Good Lord. And, actually use them to tank and then potentially, get a Stroud or a Young or a better quarterback in next year's draft class. And that's what we've been talking about this whole time. So if this Baker Mayfield to Seattle rumor is true, I think it's the most confusing thing for this organization to do. It puts us in this no man's land that, okay, well, we actually have a quarterback who can, start all 17 games of the regular season and will, not have the best stats, but in an offense where you have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, adding in Noah Fant, there's outlets for him, so it's not like there's no receivers on this offense for him. So, if Baker Mayfield does come to Seattle or this trade does happen, I will be more pissed off with the organization just because of how confusing they've been this offseason. First, they tell us they're not going to trade Russell Wilson. They trade Russell Wilson. And then I really hope this is a smoke screen, because if they are actually interested in trading for Baker Mayfield, this has to be one of the dumbest things the Seattle organization has done this offseason, because it just confuses everything else. We don't know at this point, we truly don't know what the organization's thinking in terms of the future. And it just makes things more confusing when you really think about it on what the Seattle is trying to do. Are they really trying to, be a contender for a playoff spot, or are they really trying to do a rebuild? At this point, we don't know. So it's just something to really monitor if the Seahawks really do try to pursue Baker Mayfield. I hope this is not it, but if it is, then this organization just, I don't even know. Ari, take it away.
Yeah, and it's not a knock on Baker as a player. It's just it kind of contradicts the other offseason moves the Seahawks have made this offseason, to where they're like I said, stuck in the middle, stuck in no man's land, where they're not a bottom 5 team in the league with Baker, but they're not a contender. And so that's the situation that I wants to be in. And so it would be a confusing move, let's just say, if it happens. I still don't think it's going to happen. I haven't heard this report from a reputable source that I know of. So, like you said, it could be a smoke screen, even though there's really nothing to smoke screen about, because I don't think, other than Carolina, maybe there's another team that would be interested in Baker at this point. And I don't think Baker wants to play for Cleveland after all that's gone on with them trading for Watson and all that. So, I don't even know. I guess maybe they hold on to Baker and then trade them when a quarterback gets hurt, knock on wood, God forbid, in training camp or preseason, maybe as a trade piece. But or maybe they just end up releasing Mayfield and letting him sign wherever he wants. So This will be another situation, to kind of monitor into training camp preseason. We're a few days away from July, so training camp time, and then we got preseason August and September of the season. So, 7 to 8 weeks of really just MLB, with NBA and NHL over, and then we got NFL back. Kurt, was there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I mean, pretty much just tune in these next couple weeks. It's going to be a lot more fantasy football, more heavy content as we get ready toward the beginning of, draft season. Already about a month away. We'll be doing some mock drafts with you guys, kind of laying out who we have as our best picks for ADP and all that stuff. So just tune in, a lot more fantasy football content going to be delivered to you as we get closer and closer to the start of training camp, as I already mentioned. Preseason already a little over a month away and all that stuff. So this next month, now that the basketball season ended and no NHL and it's solely baseball, we're going to be giving out a lot more fantasy football content. But we'll also be keeping up with all the NBA news this offseason as well, since free agency does start this Thursday. So tune into that. But, as we get closer and closer to, mid-July, tune into a lot more fantasy football content on this channel.
Yep, we've officially hit the dog days of summer where it's really just MLB as the only, main sport. You got the WNBA too. You got the KBO. You got some other sports on, but
hey, shout out to WNBA. Shout out to WNBA. We got the MLS too. We got the MLS.
MLS, yep, that's true. Yep, and we got Wimbledon started today in tennis. So, there are other sports, but out of the four major USA sports, let's just say it's just MLB for the next couple months or whatever. But yeah, we'll catch you all on Wednesday where we'll have more. We'll probably do some fantasy football content on Wednesday, maybe some more NBA rumors with free agency one day away from Wednesday. And yeah, just anything of the latest news. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you all